They were not the Arkansas people who were rising up against us. It was a group of outside radicals led and directed by a California group of people. You know, it doesn't make any difference to me what you think about me personally, but I am presenting to you in this telecast a truth, an absolute positive truth. Our nation is falling. And when you see groups of people gathering themselves together in Washington, D.C., and being able to gather together senators and congressmen and present such insanity as brainwashing, hypnotism, voodoo, and witchcraft, where do you think you stand in time? And what do you believe the inevitable will be? I'm asking you in all truthfulness and sincerity, search your hearts, because it's late in the day. You see one fundamental group after the other being so viciously attacked, labeled with every sort of slanderous accusation and name that can be pinned to them. And yet you feel that you are secure in this United States of America. To me, one of the most tragic things in this world is to see the lethargy among our people. My father, even though a married man, enlisted in the Army. He enlisted as a single man because he wanted to go to protect his nation. He fought in Division Number 1, General Pershing's first group that went overseas. I was raised an orphan. I never knew what it was to have a father. But I know what my father died for. My father died for this old red, white, and blue flag. He died for "In God We Trust." And to me, I had rather be dead as to ever be forced into any kind of position that I would become a pacifist. I have no apologies to make to anyone. My doctrine is straightforward, straight from the shoulder, just as Jesus said it. And there are no apologies to make to any person. If my children turn their back upon me, if every man, woman, and child upon the face of this earth turned their back upon God and slandered me, He is still my Lord and my God, and Jesus died for my sins. He rose from the dead, and He lives, and He's coming back to this old earth again one of these days very soon. I don't want to be ashamed when I look into those big black eyes, but I want Him to look at me and say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." You look across our nation and you see nothing but terror. You see nothing but hurt. You see nothing but heartache. Chief of Police of Los Angeles, Ed Davis, put against the wall because he doesn't want to take homosexuals on the police department. And yet a fundamental minister from Tulsa, Oklahoma was destroyed this past week by the news media because two young people accused him of being homosexual. Isn't it strange that all the good works of this man for 30 years went completely unnoticed by the press? But when two people accused him of being homosexual, he was destroyed. I believe, as I sat before you now, and as I look out into your faces, Tony Alamo and I will be framed one of these days, because they will have to resort to such measures as that. Because there is nothing that is truthful. There is nothing that is right that could be said that could condemn us in any way. Our lives are an open book. We gathered up groups of young people and we taught them to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to believe in its principles, to believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of the living God, to believe that He died for their sins, to believe that He lived. And they believed, and they came and they received Him by the thousands. We had no money. All we had was wall-to-wall people and no finances. But we all went to work, many of the young people out in the fields with their hands. And we bought apartment houses, and we bought buildings, and we opened businesses. But it never made any difference where we were or what the circumstances. The press has always been right there to accuse. They've always been right there to slander. I appeal to you, to your judgment, to your faith in God. While you still have time, stand up before God. Don't be afraid of these people. Why would you fear, as Jesus said, those that can only take your life? Fear Him who can take both life and soul. Fear God and keep His commandments. Every one of us that have been so viciously victimized by the news media, by the press in general, they have set us all up to be killed. This is how George Wallace was shot, was because he was painted to be such a bad person, such a radical in the eyes of people. And there's always one group of sickies that can always be depended upon. It doesn't make any difference what the format is. They are always there, and they can always be depended upon to do the dirty work of these people. Think while you still have time. Pray and seek the face of the living God. Don't believe one thing you read about any Christian, because there's none of it true. Bear in mind one thing: it's an out-and-out vicious attempt to destroy the fundamental gospel of the United States of America. These same people who are screaming and hollering about cults, they don't care 2 cents about a cult. They fit right into their program. They're not worried about them at all. They're using them as an inroad against your religious beliefs. Do you actually, are you so simple-minded that you actually believe that my religious freedoms can be taken away from me and yours are going to be left intact? Are you so foolish that you believe such a thing as that? It will never happen. It will never happen. The ones of us fundamentals that have been picked for destruction are the ones who are effective. We're the soul winners. We're the people that stand out there and fight for your freedom. These are the ones of us that have been picked for destruction. These people are not interested in the cults that they're bringing before the public. They have no interest in them whatsoever. I ask you, in all truthfulness and sincerity, make an altar before God. Because if I go, if a person goes that has gone out and stood for God with cancer eaten all the way through their body, I'm not asking you for any sympathy. I don't want your sympathy. I don't need your sympathy. I have laid up in the kingdom of heaven the riches of the eternal God. I don't need the sympathy of man. I'm not talking about what will happen to me. I'm talking about what will happen to you. Don't ever be so foolish for one instant to imagine that you're going to take another person's religious freedoms or any freedoms that that person possesses under the Constitution of the United States and do away with it, and that you are going to be left to your own devices. This is one of the last maneuvers. The same thing happened in Czechoslovakia. It happened in Poland. It happened in every one of those nations that fell. It's one of the last signs of a takeover, that the end is here. Whatever, if there is anything left in you at all, rise up, look unto the eternal God, run into the shelter of His wing, because only in Him now is there any protection. And stand up for what you believe in. Don't be shoved into a corner because someone's going to laugh at you because you think or that you say there's a communist conspiracy. You better believe there's a communist conspiracy. And it's already almost completely destroyed our nation. Our police have been lined up and told how to deal with name-calling. Take a pacifist attitude. Don't do anything against them. Just take a pacifist attitude to everything. The day of pacifying has ended. It's later than you think. I want to leave you now with one thought in mind. Regardless of what would ever happen to me, if I were framed, if I were thrown into a prison cell, I have a big, handsome Jew that would be right there with me. This is a man. This is a man that you can look up to. It's one that you can have all the faith in the world in. What makes a man or a woman out of any person? God. God. God says He takes us regardless of what our lives were before. He says He'll take every sin that we ever committed in our lives, drown it in the sea of His forgetfulness, and that He doesn't even remember it against us anymore. You know who remembers it? The devil. Every time you hear someone accuse a person of what their lives were before, I don't care what their facial expressions are, you're looking at the devil. In closing, there's room at the cross for you. Wherever you are, this old world is coming to an end. Oh, they'll legislate the freedom of religion. Remember I said that a year and a half ago on a telecast. They'll do it. But there's still a hiding place in Jesus Christ. Wherever you are, won't you kneel down? Say, Susan, I believe you. I believe everything you said today is the truth. I believe that. I know our nation has fallen. I know that. I know it's all over, and I know that Jesus is coming. Ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart. Ask Him to make you a new creature. Ask Him to give you the strength to take a stand against the powers of evil and darkness that have covered our beautiful United States of America. I see that my time is gone, and until then, may Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, that shed His blood for the remission of our sin, hold you close. Good day.
This program was recorded